It's Sunday morning on CBS. Here again is Jane Pauley.
Time now for a round of questions and answers that hits very close to home for me. More than 50 years have passed since Garry Trudeau first started drawing his Doonesbury comic strip. And the proof of that is to be found in one of the most prestigious libraries in the land. In the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, the items on display include the Gutenberg Bible, an early copy of the Declaration of Independence. Do you feel old yet?
Very.
And cartoons by Garry Trudeau.
Well, that was one of the very first bull tales. It just makes me cringe to look at this stuff.
Garry, of course, is my husband. And truth be told, we've never done anything like this before.
Hi, Garry.
Hi, Jane.
Yeah, do you know this? I'd like to say that this wasn't my idea. I never said no, but I didn't exactly say yes. I said, okay.
I still haven't said yes.
No, you never said yes. But thank you for...
Here we are.
Here we are. Who's this?
Zonker.
Making his first appearance.
Right.
This is a collector's item. His work is now the Doonesbury Archive at Yale, where, in 1968, the then 20-year-old student's comic strip creations began. From counterculture to curated. What a strange trip it's been.
But it was your dream come true.
It was not. It was more or less an accidental career. And it didn't seem to me that I was going to be bound to this thing for any, extensive period of my life. And now here it is 50 years later.
Half a century of social commentary and political satire. A cast of characters that became family. Boopsie, Duke, Joni, Mike, to name a few. But to appreciate the artist, travel beyond Doonesbury Planet to the small-town shores of Saranac Lake, New York.
Garry, you are the most archival person I have ever known.
Garry started looking back on his life when he was 12.
And this is probably one of the last times that I personally appeared in one of my own performances. As you can say, I got braces, and that may have had something to do with it.
Garry was an impresario as a kid, staging his own basement productions.
I love that telegram from your mother. Mr. Garrett Trudeau, Saranac Lake, best of luck on your opening night.
The plays gave way to painting. This moody piece won an award.
It was basically an homage to my hero then, Francisco Goya. Even though it's an extremely depressing period of his life, it's called the Black Period.
You were a teenager and you felt like you could relate to Goya's Black
Yeah, I was
period.
down with it, the whole thing.
That didn't last. What did was the humor.
It just was fun and people enjoyed it.
Evidenced in Weenie Man, Garry's anti-superhero, a hit with high school classmates.
This fanatic must be stopped. Let's dump on Weenie Man now.
That comic calling followed him to college.
There was a lot of excitement and hype surrounding the team.
And the Yale Bowl.
Quarterback Brian Dowling.
Where from high up in the bleachers, among admiring undergraduates, Garry Trudeau watched Ivy quarterback phenom Brian Dowling.
Brian finds Del Marty for the third Yale score.
I can almost picture Brian Dowling running down the field and Garry Trudeau, metaphorically, riding his coattails.
That's exactly what happened. I owe a great deal to Brian. I cooked up this idea about the team and specifically about Brian Dowling, who I renamed BD in the strip. And I took them in and the managing editor looked at them and shrugged and said, sure, we print anything.
And the Yale Daily News did. Called Bull Tales, it caught on. Shortly after graduation, it was renamed Doonesbury and syndicated in newspapers around the country.
When you started, you were kind of a phenom. I mean, let's face it, you look at a page of comic strips from those early days, Doonesbury did stand out.
It stood out for being so bad.
At its height, Doonesbury appeared in nearly 2,000 papers, made the cover of Time. There were also bans and boycotts. And in 1975, Garry Trudeau won the Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning, a first for a comic strip.
The actual prize itself was a piece of paper and a check, and it arrived in the mail.
Not long after, I entered the picture. It was a setup, engineered by Gary's friend and my Today co-host, Tom Brokaw.
Our pal here is getting married next week to a little-known cartoonist.
I never saw Doonesbury until after I met you.
Yeah, and your friends told you maybe you should read it.
I didn't know much about Doonesbury. You remember our honeymoon?
I do.
Well, we got married, lovely, but before we could leave for our honeymoon, we had to go back up to New York because you were on deadline.
Yeah, I had strips to finish up, and I would finish them often at the airport. It was always working around the margins of family life, and you know, we won't know until it all comes tumbling out in therapy for our children, you know, what kind of damage was done by my constant sneaking off to work. I imagine even now, half of your audience watching this go, really? She married a cartoonist?
Yeah.
She could have done so much better. How did that happen? Was that your dream?
Yeah.
But no, you must have. I mean, who did you think you would end up with? It's an industrialist or a...
No, I was holding out for a cartoonist,
For a
Gary.
cartoonist.
From Nixon on, presidents make frequent Doonesbury appearances. Donald Trump was on Gary's comic strip radar 30 years before taking office.
This is 31 years ago, your first Doonesbury featuring Donald J. Trump.
He was well known enough by that time.
He's denying any political ambitions. No,
Right.
no, I'm just being...
Rick says, okay, but if you did run for Congress, and Trump replies, president, think president. So that's, you know, that was, this has been in the air for a long, long time.
Of tens of thousands of strips, the one of BD losing his leg in the Iraq War had the biggest impact on readers.
Almost there, BD, everything's good. Not your time, bro. His leg is missing. That's startling. And the fact that he didn't have a helmet on was noteworthy and just as startling.
The strip has appeared in the Armed Services military newspaper Stars and Stripes since 1973.
Each moment had its moment.
Along the way, he's been nominated for an Academy Award for an animated Doonesbury film. There's been a Broadway show and the Amazon sitcom Alpha House. But for the grown-up impresario, it's that accidental career that will leave the most memorable legacy.
Garry Trudeau, the chronicler of the generational counterculture, has turned 70.
Yeah, I'm part of what they call a legacy strip. It's like a legacy band. You've been around forever, and that gives you a certain amount of job security. I'll probably stay in newspapers, but I'm only going to be around as long as newspapers are. I'll be one of those guys who turns out the lights.